Did David Schwartz, the Chief Technology Officer over at Ripple, give us an insight into his true identity? Now, on X, he's known as Joel Katz, a pseudonym he's gone by since childhood that stuck. However, his experience with digital currencies, encryption, and cryptography actually go all the way back to the late 80s. He was such an expert that he even consulted for the NSA and seems to know a lot more than he's letting on about the origins of Bitcoin. Well, in a recent interview at the last event he attended, a fan cornered him and then interviewed him. And it seems like he just said the quiet part out loud. And whether he is involved in the group that created Bitcoin or knows who did, either way, this is far more likely of a scenario now based on what he shared in this interview. And if true, then David Schwartz has some deep ties to those who make the decisions on a global financial level. Now, I understand this is complete and total speculation, so in this video, I'll let you watch and then decide for yourself. Now, what's even more interesting is that something strange is happening with XRP and unfolding fast, because out of nowhere, just yesterday, XRP trading volume on Coinbase exploded 9,600%, hitting $438 million in a single day. And moves like this don't happen by accident. Someone or something just pulled off a massive play behind the scenes, which I'll cover in this video. But the real question is, why now? Now, this is all going down while Bitcoin liquidity is quietly drying up, currently at its lowest local levels in terms of exchange reserves. That typically means that if demand follows, the price is going to go up. And this is how every major rally in history has started. Right before the supply crunch, right before the squeeze. Big money isn't waiting around. They're accumulating while the price remains low. They're positioning themselves because they know what happens next, as apparently almost 27 US states are pushing for Bitcoin adoption. And 15 of those states have already introduced bills, and some are even at the point where they're ready to be voted on between their House and Senate and then signed into law. And this is all off the back of the fact that the federal government is planning to adopt the Bitcoin standard and create a strategic crypto reserve, which will likely hold a majority in Bitcoin and then potentially buy other cryptos as they are in the regulatory clear closer to the end of this year. So things are really starting to cook, folks. And stick around to the end of this video because I'll be sharing all of the above that I mentioned and also diving a bit into the price action on XRP. So if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the channel, my friends. If you're new here, my name is Paul and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDefi, PAULIEDEFI. Now, before we dive into the news surrounding David Schwartz potentially being Satoshi Nakamoto or knowing who Satoshi Nakamoto is, we're going to dive into a bit of Bitcoin and the news surrounding its adoption at a state level, as well as this video from Senator Loomis talking about how we can actually cut our debt in half in 20 years by adopting Bitcoin and then holding it in a strategic reserve. Now, the reason I'm talking about Bitcoin, if you're new around here, is because Bitcoin is the mothership in terms of crypto. When we look at the total market cap or money in Bitcoin, this is the money among everyone. And the way that it works is if you were to multiply, we'll go back, the circulating supply by the current price, that would bring you up to a total of $1.9 trillion. The next closest competitor for money in the space is Ethereum at 326 billion, and then ranking in at number 3 on today's price action, always bouncing between number 3 and 4 depending on whether there's sell pressure or buy pressure, is XRP sitting at $144 billion. Now, Bitcoin needs to rise in order to create for a positive economic environment for the rest of the crypto market. In other words, if Bitcoin is doing poorly, then everything else will. On the flip side, if Bitcoin is in a positive momentum zone, then that leaves room for everything else to do well as well. And the reason for that is because a rising tide raises all ships. I've been in this market for 3 separate bear and bull cycles now, and I can assure you that in a bear market, when Bitcoin starts to dump, typically everything else dumps even harder. And on the flip side, you'll actually see better percentage returns on lower market cap cryptos, and typically even XRP into this bull market cycle, considering we're finally going to get some regulatory clarity and the SEC case is likely out the window. Now, really quickly, we're going to talk about, or better yet, share this video from Senator Cynthia Lummis, Bitcoin mom, talking about why we should adopt the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Standard, where our government essentially buys and holds Bitcoin like they do with oil and gold. Let's have a listen.
So why Bitcoin would make sense as part of our strategic reserves is that we recognize other long-term stores of value and put them in strategic reserve. We have a gold strategic reserve. We have an oil strategic reserve. I think it is fitting that Bitcoin, now that is really digital gold, be included among our reserve assets. So I'm proposing in the Bitcoin Act that we purchase roughly 200,000 Bitcoin a year just by converting money we already have into Bitcoin and hold them for 20 years. If we did that with, say, 5% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist, which is roughly 1 million Bitcoin, we could cut our debt in half in 20 years. And in the meantime, we would have an asset that's growing in value while our own dollar is decreasing in value. And thereby we could shore up the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. What that does is help us protect ourselves against inflation and protect the US dollar on the world stage.
Now think about what she just said. If we adopt Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset and hold about 5% of all the Bitcoin, we could cut our debt in half in 20 years. And I think it could happen even sooner. Now, many people say, well, it's not just going to be Bitcoin in a strategic reserve, but you're also going to have other digital assets. And although that is possible and would likely be more bullish for assets like XRP, Ethereum, Solana, all of the major leaders in the crypto space, I would argue it still does not have to happen to create a very positive environment for all cryptos to still outperform everything else in the TradFi market. What that means is if Bitcoin continues to rise in price because of a supply and demand type of a situation where the supply continues to get squeezed and demand continues to rise because other nation states are trying to adopt and buy Bitcoin to follow the state's lead, and Bitcoin then goes into the many millions of dollars, well, you can bet your arse that XRP and all the other cryptos are going to rally really hard as well. And to add to that bullishness, it's not just the Fed that wants to buy and hold Bitcoin. States are also doing this. We have Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Wyoming, Texas, Pennsylvania, you name it. And even Florida wants to adopt 10% of their GDP in terms of Bitcoin, which is a massive number for a state. And many of these states, like Florida and Texas, have some of the world's largest economies. These economies are larger than many nations all throughout Europe. And when you're talking just Texas alone, it is the 8th largest economy in the world. And that is one state inside of the United States. But if all of these states start to adopt and hold Bitcoin, then it is very likely that they're also going to adopt and hold other assets as well. And that would likely include XRP once we are in the clear with this SEC case and potentially have a spot ETF somewhere in the mid-year to the end of the year. Now, really quickly, before we get on to the rest of this video, if you haven't already, head on over to bullrunners.com. You can find the link in the description below to check out Altcoin Pro University. Time is running out in this bull market cycle. I personally believe we have through May before we experience another summer lull, which means we could see some serious gains in altcoins through the rest of this first quarter of 2025. That said, every single day counts, especially when it comes to altcoin picks from our pros, which we share live inside of Altcoin Pro University. That's not the only thing you're going to get. You're going to get access to classes and courses from our pros. You're going to get access to live calls where we share everything we know, from fundamental analysis to technical analysis to all the DeFi yields and airdrops. And we have, bar none, one of the best communities in all of crypto. So if your goal is to become a crypto millionaire in 2025, then you're going to want to hustle over to Altcoin Pro University by clicking that link down below in the description. Watch this 26-minute video. And the reality is, we cannot guarantee you're going to be a millionaire. Obviously, you have to put some money behind it and you have to do the work. But at the end of the day, this is your one-stop shop. We provide the best tools, training, and resources. And I'm not the only one that says this. We've had calls upon calls from our pros inside of Altcoin Pro University. For example, here is someone named Gary basically saying that he got free money from adding his crypto to a liquidity pool where he was earning between 67 to 33% APY for a total of 90 days, and it paid off. And here is another woman by the name of Robin who bought 10 VVV tokens that we shared inside of our group and staked them at a 537% APY. Now, obviously, you're not going to experience that the entire time, but this is for a period of 43 days to get access to an airdrop and also to earn by providing those tokens in a yield pool, which is all stuff you'll learn on the back end in terms of our decentralized finance education. So realistically, you wouldn't get 537% consistently the entire time. That will decrease over time as more users enter those pools, but this is all in the back end in terms of our education. So for example, this person actually did get the airdrop and they got 11 Venice tokens worth $165. And the value is just consistent. Here's another person by the name of Gareth basically sharing that he is blown away by all of the value that we provide in the back end. So go ahead and go to bullrunners.com to check it out. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Every single day matters because you could be missing out on all sorts of cool opportunities just like that. Now let's get back into the video. All right, folks. So the moment y'all been waiting for, this interview with David Schwartz about whether or not he is Satoshi Nakamoto or knows who it is. Let's take a listen.
I'm serious.
I wish, man.
I came up with the most perfect synopsis. Get this on video. You actually put a patent on blockchain technology in 1980, correct?
I mean, it's. I don't know how close.
I'm going to tell you the story, and then I want to see your reaction and your expression and your body language. Okay, check this out. 1988, you put the blockchain technology back in 2000 or something like that. You go to work for a car firm, am I correct?
No, I mean, I spent some time consulting for the NSA in 2000.
Okay.
2000.
And what happens in 2007, 2008, we have a housing bubble, right? And in 2009, you're still there. Bitcoin is born. Bitcoin doesn't work. It's too slow. It's too cumbersome. And then the only guy that could fix Bitcoin is Satoshi Nakamoto, aka XRP. No?
Well, so there's one problem with that, which is if you look at the original Bitcoin source code,
Right.
It has a user interface implemented in Qt. I don't know Qt. So you have to add at least one other person.
We have resources.
Yeah, you have to add at least one other person to make it plausible.
Okay, but you might be the main guy.
It's not impossible. It's not true. But it's not.
I got it on video.
I have the skill set to do it.
Awesome.
But I didn't discover Bitcoin until 2011. I wish I had. Believe me, I'd be what? How much is Satoshi's Bitcoin worth?
63. What is it? How much is it?
63. How many million Bitcoin do people think he has?
21 million.
Somewhere between 1 and 2 million, right? Depending on how much of the early money you think was him.
Right.
So that's what?
No, $50
billion?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, at the peak?
So folks, it doesn't sound like he is admitting to the fact that he is Satoshi Nakamoto, although many people might watch this video and say, well, he's maybe hinting at the fact that he knows, and that might actually be true, but then he mentions that he would have actually bought and held Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has not moved in the Satoshi Nakamoto wallet since 2014. Now, he says he didn't find out about Bitcoin until 2011. So even then, think about the amount of fortitude, patience, and self-control you would have to never sell or move a single Bitcoin since 2014, when it really wasn't worth that much to begin with and is now worth too much. Either way, it's safe to say that David Schwartz is quite well off in his own right, considering the fact that he owns a boatload of XRP. Although I'm not too sure how much he owns, I know he holds quite a bit. And insiders apparently know something, because the trading volume on Coinbase soared 9,640% just the other day. And apparently it's because traders are positioning themselves in the market now that we've experienced a dump, a bit of a sell-off, and things are actually looking quite bullish now if you take a look at the price action and chart. So let's go ahead and take a look at that price action. The first thing that you'll notice is that we are in a clear uptrend. Here was our major local low right back on October 24th or 25th of 2024. Since that point in time, we consistently put in higher highs and higher lows. And as you can see here, we had a series of higher lows for a triple bottom right at about that $2 range. And then we pumped for a new high up to about 340 and dumped really hard in a mass liquidation event all the way to 176. But realistically, our major lows are now coming in at about $2.40. This would be another higher low relative to the lows happened here. So if you were looking at this, this is an uptrend textbook. We have a series of higher highs. This high is higher than this high. This low is higher than these lows. These lows are higher than this low, so on and so forth. And so one can reasonably assume that if we hold this range right here, and I'll go ahead and take a trend line tool and delete those drawings right here, that things are looking pretty good for XRP, especially if Bitcoin remains in a bullish range and starts to break out for new highs as well. We need Bitcoin to do well in order for everything else to do well. But as you can see here, we are clearly in an uptrend and we are at the bottom of this range. Now, from a VRVP perspective, or a visible range volume profile, you can see that the majority of volume has traded between the $2.46 range all the way down to the $2.33 range. And this would be our major point of interest, or our support zone, which is exactly where we dumped right back down to after the major volatility event and have been supported here. From a 4-hour time frame, I would still like to see a break above and a hold, and likely even on a daily time frame above that $2.53 range. So I will go ahead and move that line right up to there. And now this is my major resistance, which I would argue is not really much of a resistance at this point, considering we have a double bottom here, this nice little W shape pattern. I like to call it a winner's pattern, and it really paints the picture that if we break above the $2.53 range, we're likely going right back up to that $3.10 range, where we might actually meet some resistance as we have a trend line right here for a descending wedge. So let me go ahead and remove that line right there, zoom out one last time, and as you can see here, it's highly likely we're going to come right back up to that $2.94 range or even higher. But still, in markets, anything is possible, and so I would recommend that if you are adding any leverage, just be cautious. And ultimately, these are simply my opinions. This is for informational and educational purposes only, but I have been accumulating in these ranges and will continue to accumulate on a breakout above $2.54. Now, if I pull up the Rook EMAs, or that 10 and 20 EMA, you can see that this is a bearish cross. We have the 20 EMA above the 10 EMA. So realistically, we could bounce right back up to that $2.64 range, see some resistance, get a support right back here at 253 before moving to the upside. But either way, we would like to also see the 10 EMA cross above the 20 EMA on a daily time frame. Now, I'm going to do something really cool here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a volume footprint right here. This is something that does not come with a free account on TradingView. However, if you do have any paid account, I believe you'll be able to get access to something like this. And what's really cool is it actually shows you where the majority of volume has traded in a range. And as you can see here, if I really zoom in on that daily time frame, we get a lot of these white zones right here. And in most situations and circumstances, those white zones are giving me the range upon which the majority of volume has traded, which literally tells me what our support and resistance zone is, especially when we get mass liquidation events like this or big moves. Where did the majority of volume trade? And as you can see, it traded right here at the $2.40 range for $12.8 million on the day. And then the very next day we had $13.9 million. So I'm going to go ahead and take this tool right here and draw it all the way across to the right hand side. And we're going to see if that aligns with anything else that's going on inside of this price action. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go right back to that candlestick range. And as you can see here, this aligns perfectly with what looks to be our support for a lot of wicks and a potential move to the upside on a break above $2.54. If I were to pull this all the way back, it looks exactly the same here. Now we're also getting a confluence on the VRVP. So everything looks really good in this range right now. This is my accumulation zone. We have a lot of support here. We've been trading here since the start of December last year. And so if this bullish momentum continues and if everything looks good for Bitcoin and from a regulatory environment perspective, then yes, I do expect XRP to break right back up to that $3.10 range or $2.95. See a little bit of resistance, but potentially move for some new all-time highs through the rest of this month into the next month. Now that's it for the video, folks. If you enjoyed the video and learned something new, be sure to subscribe to the channel and also check out Altcoin Pro University. I talked about it in the middle of this video, but listen, time is running out. We only have bonuses for so many people inside of this deal. So watch this 26-minute video if you want to learn more about how you can take advantage of this bull run with all the right tools, training, and resources to hit your goals in crypto. Because we have one of the best communities in all of crypto that are actually paying to be here, which means the alpha is insane. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video, my friend. Goodbye.